Welcome to the Peak Performance and Peak Satisfaction podcast with Master Executive Coach Sherry Gregoff. Sherry helps business people perform better, get rewarded handsomely, and actually enjoy their work. After having her own career turnaround, she now helps other high-powered business professionals experience the same. Join the movement to work differently.
Welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you here. There are two things we don't tolerate well as business leaders: risk and, counterintuitively, success. When it comes to risk, we would rather enjoy the reward without having to experience the uncertainty. We might fantasize about leading a life of leisure without having to put ourselves out there, but still collecting the same or better rewards. Interestingly, we also tend to retreat as the very success we have been working towards draws closer. In this episode, we build up your tolerance for both the risk involved in rewards and for success itself. Before we jump in, I want to shout out one of my clients who had a win in this area. Here is the quote from him. Sherry talked me out of giving up right when we were on the verge of the best development in my business's history. She made it feel safe enough to keep going. This client was taking the big swing in his business, and it was a make or break moment. Years into this work, it was clear that the final weeks and days before closing a deal had come. His brain started offering all the reasons why quitting now would be easier or more prudent than following through. Instead of presenting all the hard work done to date as evidence to keep going, to reap the harvest of seeds sown, his brain offered the idea that it's been too much effort, it's been too hard, and it's better to turn back despite being within striking distance of the goal that he had been working towards. I shared the analogy that you may have seen in an illustration: a person digging a tunnel underground to escape and giving up, saying it was futile, just before breaking through to the freedom he sought. The problem is that in real life, we don't have the aerial view to affirm that we are indeed right on the verge of success. So even having invested much time and resources in a venture, we may encounter fatigue and our brain switches gears. The prefrontal cortex, who is innovating and creating, now takes a back seat to the primitive basal ganglia, who just wants to survive. This is how dreams die. This is why so many of us take our big visions unexplored to the grave with us. This inner switch in our brains, combined with the fact that there will always be external challenges, circumstances that don't go our way. I say it's like the universe testing our resolve and desire to see if this goal that we have is one that we are truly committed to. In both cases, I find that we can hold opposing beliefs. This client outlined what Plan B would look like if the deal fell apart and he needed to reinvent the business. This served to calm his nervous system, but also reminded him how much he really wanted to see it through instead. So then he renewed his belief that failure was not an option, so success became more certain. When taking quitting off the table, it's stunning how circumstances align and brilliance is delivered to us. Similar victories are shared by all of my clients, and I have experienced it too in my own career turnaround. So let's hop to today's podcast content and get you on your way to experiencing this also. First up, risk intolerance, the hidden reason why we stay stuck playing it safe. There's a point in our careers where progress slows down, not because we aren't capable, not because we've lost motivation, and not because opportunities aren't available, but because we become careful. We're thoughtful, responsible, measured, and all of that sounds like a good thing until it starts limiting our growth. Today, I'm sharing something that shows up constantly in corporate environments, but is rarely named: risk intolerance. This is the pattern where we begin to avoid the very risks required to get to the next level. And here's the nuance. This isn't about reckless behavior It's not about making bad decisions. This is about over-optimizing for safety at the expense of impact. Let's discuss what risk tolerance actually is, how it develops in high performers, how it shows up across different corporate levels, and how to recalibrate your relationship with risk so that you can move forward. Because at a certain point in your career, growth is no longer about doing more. It's about being willing to do things that are not guaranteed. First, what is risk intolerance? It's the tendency to avoid uncertainty, exposure, or potential downside, even when the potential upside is significant. It's not fear in an obvious sense. It's calculated. It's rational. It often sounds like, let's wait for more data. I want to make sure this is fully thought through. Now may not be the right time. And again, these are not inherently wrong, but over time they create a pattern of delayed action, conservative decisions, and missed opportunities. And most importantly, they prevent you from operating at the level required for meaningful advancement. Next, let's look at how risk intolerance develops. This is important because risk intolerance, it's not a personality flaw. It's learned behavior. We are rewarded early in our careers for accuracy, reliability, consistency, and low error rates. We build a reputation for getting it right, getting the job done, being reliable, and that becomes our identity. So, as the stakes increase, we become more cautious because now mistakes are more visible. The consequences feel larger. Our reputation feels more fragile. So instead of expanding our risk tolerance to hold this larger role, we tighten it. We tell ourselves to keep our mouths shut, tread lightly, choose our battles, keep our head down and keep it from being lobbed off. And that's where growth starts to stall. In fact, from here, we may start wishing we could opt out altogether as the stakes get higher. We start fighting with reality daily, wishing our jobs were tenured and stable. This is illogical, as we know that with great risk comes great reward. To enjoy the lucrative rewards, we must take risk. So instead of wishing we were on a beach, a golf course, or a ski slope with our current income and none of the risks or responsibilities that come with it, decide today whether that trade-off is worth it to you, and then expand your capacity to hold it. This is so important for my entrepreneurs in particular, but really for all leaders who are taking risks, making investment decisions, deciding the future of products. We know this, but I will say it again. There is no easy out. I would offer that if we were tenured and risk-free in our work, we would most certainly plateau, not take risks, and quickly grow disengaged and disinterested in our work. Welcome the risks as opportunity. This is what makes work interesting. Now, here's the corporate pattern. Organizations often unintentionally reinforce risk intolerance. They say they want innovation, strategic thinking, bold leadership, but they reward precision, predictability, and short-term certainty. So employees learn that it's safer to be right than to be bold. It's safer to wait than to move. It's safer to optimize than to explore. And over time, we may end up with very smart, very capable people making very safe decisions. Now, for how it shows up by level within an organization. Let's start at level 1, our high performers with 10 to 15 years experience. This is where we'll see reluctance to take on ambiguous projects, a preference for clearly defined roles, a hesitation to speak up without full certainty, the avoidance of stretch assignments. The underlying belief here is that if I don't get it right, it reflects on my capability. So we stay in zones where success is predictable. At level 2, this is our new leaders, let's say at the director or VP level. We'll see overanalysis before decisions, delayed decision-making, seeking excessive alignment, avoiding the bold calls. The underlying belief here is if I make the wrong call, it impacts more than just me. So we prioritize consensus over conviction. Let's look at level 3, our senior executives, senior VPs, C-suite. This is where it becomes most costly. We see here conservative strategy choices, lack of decisive positioning, incremental thinking versus transformational thinking, avoidance of visible bets. The underlying belief here, at this level, mistakes are amplified. So we protect downside instead of pursuing upside. Let's look at the cost of risk intolerance. This is not just an individual issue. This can become a business issue. Risk intolerance leads to slower innovation, missed market opportunities, reduced competitive advantage, and stagnant leadership pipelines. For an individual, you'll see slower career progression, reduced visibility, and plateaued impact. Because at higher levels, we're not rewarded for being right all the time. We're rewarded for making decisions, taking calculated risks, and driving outcomes under uncertainty. Okay, here's the shift available to you today. We are going to move from how do I avoid taking risk to how do I take intelligent risk? Because the goal is not to eliminate risk. The goal is to understand it, to size it, to manage it, and still move forward. At higher levels, the expectation is not certainty, it's judgment. It's those calculated risks. It's making educated decisions. Okay, let's make this actionable now with practical strategies that you can start applying right away. First, redefine what good looks like. In our early career, good may be accurate, complete, correct. Later in our career, good is defined as timely, directional, actionable. We don't need perfect information. We need enough information to move. Next, separate reversible versus irreversible decisions. Not all risks are equal. So ask yourself, can this decision be reversed? What's the real downside? Most decisions are not permanent. Treat them accordingly. Next, shorten your decision cycle. If you tend to overanalyze, set a constraint. I will decide within 48 hours. I can move forward with 70% confidence. Speed is a leadership skill. In my asynchronous online book club, we recently read Move Fast and Fix Things. It's a great read. If you want to join in on our book selection this month, with no requirement to attend any live book discussions, go to the first link in the show notes and join us. All right, last practical takeaway. Build your risk reps. Just like anything else, risk tolerance is built through repetition. So take small, visible risks. Share ideas earlier. Make decisions with less data. Over time, your tolerance expands. Let's also apply this to organizations. So if you're a leader, you can't say you want innovation and then punish risk-taking. You need to reward intelligent risk-taking, normalize imperfect decisions, and create psychological safety for bold thinking. Because otherwise, you will train your organization to play it safe. Risk intolerance, it feels responsible. It feels smart. It feels like leadership. But at a certain point, it becomes the very thing holding us back. The question is not, can I eliminate risk? The question is, am I willing to move forward without certainty? Because that is where growth lives. So this week, I want you to identify one decision that you've been delaying and ask yourself, what am I waiting for? Then move, not recklessly, not blindly, but decisively, because progress here requires it. If you could use a sounding board in making that decision, book your free consultation and let's discuss it live. You can download my leadership playbook to access my decision-making protocol. Let's move forward now to the less discussed success intolerance, why we end up stalling right before the next level. So there's a moment in all of our careers where things look pretty good on the surface. We're delivering, we're respected, we're on track, and yet something isn't happening. We're not breaking through to the next level. We're not being seen the way we should be. We're not having the level of impact that we're capable of. And it's not because we lack skill. It's not because we lack work ethic. And it's definitely not because we don't care. It's something much more subtle. Success intolerance. This is the invisible ceiling that keeps capable, driven, accomplished business professionals operating just below their true level of impact. Now, once you see it, you can't unsee it. I'm going to walk you through today what success intolerance is, how it shows up at different levels in corporate environments, why companies and businesses must care deeply about this, and most importantly, how we break through it. It's not about working harder, it's about expanding our capacity to operate at the next level. So first, what is success intolerance? It is the tendency to subconsciously resist, delay, or undermine your own success, especially when you're right on the edge of a breakthrough. It's not obvious. In fact, most people experiencing it would tell you, I'm doing everything right. And in many ways, they are. But here's what's happening underneath. We're continuing to operate in the behaviors, habits, and identity of our current level, while expecting results from the next level. And those two things don't match. Success intolerance is not about fear of failure. It's about fear of visibility, fear of increased expectations, fear of being evaluated at a higher standard, fear of what changes if you actually succeed. So instead of moving forward cleanly, we hesitate, we overthink, we stay busy instead of being impactful, we wait instead of stepping forward, not consciously, but consistently. I have a client who recently grew her scope to now lead her peers and her overall group. She has the role that she has been waiting for. Now with a seat squarely at the table, she feels an urge to stay quiet and tread lightly because she is new to the role. What a shame this would be. The success in terms of autonomy and setting strategic direction that she wanted is here. Imagine if fear kept her quiet, kept her from sharing her diverse perspective, and kept her from ultimately collecting the title that goes along with her expanded scope. Instead, I showed her why she was in this very seat at this very moment to use her voice and make the bold moves that she couldn't before. And this is exactly what would bring the success she hoped for. So why does this all matter? Let's bring this into a corporate context because it's incredibly important and so infrequently discussed. Organizations often believe they have a pipeline problem, a leadership gap, a bench strength issue. But what I see over and over again is this. It's not a talent problem. It's a capacity activation problem. We've got high potential individuals who are technically strong, highly capable, trusted, and consistent, but they're not fully stepping into the behaviors required for enterprise-level impact. So the organization ends up with slower decision-making, underdeveloped leaders, missed opportunities for innovation, and a constant search for external talent, when in reality, the talent is already inside the building. It's just not fully activated. This is how success intolerance shows up by level. See if you maybe recognize yourself here. Level 1, high performers with 10 to 15 years of experience. So again, these are our future directors and VPs. They're known as reliable, smart, hardworking, detail-oriented. They deliver consistently. But here's what we notice. They may also stay focused on execution instead of elevation. They may wait to be recognized instead of signaling readiness. They may be avoiding high visibility opportunities or holding back in senior rooms. They're doing excellent work, but not making themselves visible at the next level. And underneath that is this belief: if I step up and I'm not ready, it will be exposed. So they stay where it's safe and they get stuck. At level 2, new leaders, this is at the director or VP level, these individuals have made the transition, but not fully. So they're in leadership roles, but they're still operating like high-level individual contributors. We may see they hold on to too much work. They don't delegate effectively. They avoid difficult conversations, and they struggle with executive presence. Why? Because stepping fully into leadership requires letting go of control, being accountable through others, making decisions with incomplete information, and that can feel risky. So they default back to what they know: execution, and that keeps them from scaling. Level 3 with senior executives, so the senior VP or C-suite, this is where it gets even more subtle. These individuals are highly capable. They've proven themselves already, but they're not fully leveraging their position. We'll notice here that they play it safe in strategic conversations. They don't push bold perspectives. They underutilize their platform. They hesitate with thought leadership because now the stakes are different. At this level, visibility is higher, consequences are larger, expectations are elevated, and so instead of expanding further, they stabilize. They plateau just below their highest level of impact. Now, let's talk about what the root cause is underneath all of this. I'm calling it the identity gap. At the core of success intolerance is this one thing: our identity. Every level of success requires a different identity, not just new skills or new knowledge, but a new way of seeing ourselves. So if we're still identifying as the reliable executor, the hardworking team player, the person who gets things done, we may continue to behave in ways that reinforce that identity, even if we want more from our career. The next level requires strategic thinking, visibility, influence, and decision-making under pressure. And if our identity hasn't caught up, we'll resist these behaviors, not because we can't do them, but because they don't feel like us. So how this shows up day to day, success intolerance, it's not in one big moment. It shows up in small micro decisions daily. And it can sound like, I'll wait one more cycle before I speak up. I want to refine this a bit before I share it. I don't want to overstep. Let me just get this perfect first. These all sound reasonable. They even sound responsible, but over time they create a pattern of delayed visibility, reduced influence, and missed opportunities. And we remain in the same place, not because we're not capable, but because we're not operating at the level required for where we want to go. We haven't truly internalized that next level identity yet. So how do we change this? The breakthrough shift available to you is not working harder or learning confidence or just going for it. That's not going to work at this level. The shift here is going from an outcome focus to a capacity focus. So instead of asking, can I succeed at the next level? Ask, can I handle what success requires? Because success will bring more visibility, more scrutiny, more decision-making, and more complexity. And once we frame it that way, it becomes something you can build, capacity that can be expanded to hold the scope of that new role. So let's make this actionable now with practical strategies. Here's 4 ways that we can start breaking success intolerance. First, identify your edge. Ask yourself, where am I almost showing up at the next level, but not fully? This is your edge. It might be speaking up earlier in meetings, sharing your perspective more directly, taking ownership beyond your role, and speaking truth to power. That edge, that's your growth zone. Second, name the trade-off. Success always comes with a trade-off, so be honest about it. If I step into this next level, what changes? More responsibility, visibility, maybe less control? Name it, because when it goes unnamed, it's going to continue to control and limit you. Third, redefine your identity. Don't wait for the promotion. Start now. Instead of, I'm trying to become a next level leader, shift to, I operate as that leader now. Identity drives behavior, and your behavior drives your results. And lastly, create repetition. This is critical. You don't overcome success intolerance with one big move. You overcome it with repetition. So speak up more often, share more often, take ownership more often, say the hard truths more often. Make the next level normal for you. Now, if you're a leader listening to this is where you need to be paying attention, because your top talent, it's not that they're underperforming, they're underactivated. And the opportunity is not just developing them, it's unlocking capacity that already exists. So the leaders who figure this out are promoting their people faster. They're building stronger benches. They're driving more impact because they're not just developing skills, they're expanding how their people operate. Success intolerance, it's not a weakness. It's a signal that you are right on the edge of your next level. And the question isn't, am I ready? The question is, am I willing to operate at the level that success requires? Because once you commit, everything changes. If this resonated with you, I want you to do one thing this week. Identify one place where you're holding back and step forward instead. Doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be complete or right or thorough. Just take one step forward, because creating that momentum at this level can have a significant impact. And if you're a leader looking to unlock the full capacity of your people, help them to build this tolerance too. This is what I do. I help leaders take calculated risks for more reward and invite the success that they have worked for. Until next time.
Looking for support in applying the principles and strategies in today's episode? Sherry coaches clients one-on-one as their trusted confidant and advisor, helping each client create the work and life they had only dreamed of. To schedule your complimentary career strategy session, go to sherrygregoff.com/apply to book time with her today. It's one simple step that can change everything.